Huge class buffs and nerfs coming, and solo player special event. I did see these patch notes a little bit ago. I didn't go reading through them. I thought I might make my own video about it and go through all the news and everything else that has to do with these, but I said, let me just be a degen and, mooch off of somebody else's content. Why don't I? So, yeah, signs of Colani. We got Colani here talking about all the huge class changes, and there are a lot of them. A lot of them. So let's check out what's going on with all of these class changes.
Hey folks, this is Colani. We have some huge class changes.
What the fuck? When did this happen? I didn't know this was the video. Somebody told me Colani had a face reveal. Yeah. This is the I'm not going to lie. He looks exactly like what I would have expected him to look like. This was literally the face lore of Colani in my head. Yeah, I could have imagined him wearing glasses. He looks very British. To me, I don't know if he is in fact British, but he looks British. Yeah, beautiful blue eyes too. Yeah, wow. Nothing. His voice doesn't match his face. What I thought, I don't know why, this is what I thought Colani looked like, truly. Yeah, like a little bit ruffle, a little bit of, he's shaved, but he's got a little bit of shadow. Yeah, the kind of, blowing in the wind hair and the glasses. Yeah, this totally fits my face lore for Colani. Yeah, I was the same way when I seen it. I thought he was an old man. Anyways, yeah, great. Wow, face reveal. Nice, Colani.
He's coming with the next weekly reset, including massive buffs for classes not doing so
Holy
well,
crap.
and some large buffs for classes that are dominating the charts. There are also some big buffs coming to underused trinkets, which could shake up your best in slot lists. And then we have our first look at a new solo player-friendly special event coming in patch 11.1.5. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down in this week's WoW News video. Now, before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video.
This is so weird, man. I'm used to hearing this, but I've seen his face along with it. Oh, man, good on him. I guess we're going to see more Colani face lore.
Let's kick things off with the latest round of class balance tuning changes, buffs, and nerfs. These are the first real changes that we've seen for Season 2, and there are some large adjustments coming. All of these buffs and nerfs are set to go live with the next weekly reset on Tuesday, March 25th.
Okay.
Death Knights are starting things out with a 4% buff across the board for all of Frost's abilities and damage. Not a super exciting change, but Frost should be kicking out a good chunk more damage after the weekly reset. Demon Hunters don't have too much to look forward to, just a small nerf to Vengeance. Deflecting Spikes now causes Demon Spikes to increase your parry chance by 10%, down from 15%, but with how dominant Demon Hunter tanks are right now, these nerfs could definitely have been a lot worse. The Druids are up next, and Balance has some pretty big buffs coming through.
Wow, a 30% increase to Wrath damage. What the hell?
Damage has been increased by 30%, Star Surge damage is getting a 5% buff, and then Elun's Chosen Lunar Calling increases Starfire's damage to its primary target by 160%, up from 100%, so they're getting some decent single target buffs moving forward. Guardian Druids join the list this week as well, with some buffs to Druid of the Claw. Dreadful Wound damage has been increased by 20%, Empowered Shapeshifting increases swipe damage by 12%, up from 6%, and Mangle's damage is up by 25%, up from 15%. And then Wild Power Surge's bonus to rip damage was reduced down to 200% from 225%. Moving on, we come to the Evokers, and Devastation
it's already
has some interesting changes.
Devastation, I want to see what happens with them. Druid, I don't know if they're meta class. Druids are meta class right now. I know Feral's doing much better, but I didn't realize they were part of the meta. The Devastation Evoker overall.
Another death.
Charbs coming in with the 14 months. Thank you so much, Charbs. I appreciate that. Coming in over 2 years now. Wow. Wait, over 1 year. Fuck, what's wrong with me? There's 12 months in a year, Sam. Get your shit straight. Thank you. I was predicting the future. I just know you're going to keep subbing. So thank you, Charps. I appreciate that. Feral does well, but Boomkin is Giga. Okay, I didn't realize that. Devastation Evoker. Let's see what's going on.
I guess that old set bonuses were proving to be too powerful.
We all know Augmentation got nerfed into the ground this season.
So they're getting nerfed to encourage players to drop the old stuff in favor of the new tier set bonuses. And the Season 2 bonuses have been buffed up as well.
This happens sometimes. I guess their Narubar raid tier was still doing better than the current one because of the set bonus. Okay. Yeah, that always happens. They'll just nerf that shit until you force you into the next tier set.
The 2 set will cast Shattering Star at 100% effectiveness, up from 50%, and it will also proc 25% more often. The 4 set will increase the damage of your next Empower spell by 25%, up from 20%. So this should be good news for the Devastation Evokers. Now, augmentation has fallen out of favour quite considerably since they got nerfed into the ground, which isn't all too surprising really, but the dev team still...
I mean, they were necessary for Season 1 Mythic Plus, so you knew Blizzard was going to come in and just rock them, completely in the ground. I still like bringing them to raid. I still think there's value behind them, but certainly they are not the meta anymore.
Wants them to be at least somewhat playable, I guess, because they're going to get a 15% damage buff across the board.
That's better.
They won't provide any extra support, so their various buffs aren't seeing any changes, buffs, or nerfs. The dev team just wants their personal damage contributions to be higher. A 15% buff is pretty huge, but I'm not sure
I don't think that's
going to
help,
be
though.
enough with how badly they were nerfed going into Season 2.
Nobody's bringing a Devastation Evoker for its own personal DPS, that's for sure. So if they wanted to actually make them more viable, they'd have to rebuff some of their buffs to the party. I don't know, 15% buff. What are they? They're at the very bottom. So what does that put them at? Like second to last in terms of DPS? Now, if you consider the buff that they're giving to the rest of the party, maybe it puts them up a little bit more. But still, man, I don't think they're doing that much.
I'll be curious to see how augmentation evolves if they don't want it to be that powerful support spec that it's been in the past. Preservation had the same kind of problem with their old set bonuses, so the 4th set from Season 1 is going to be cut in half. They're also going to see a 5% healing increase for all of their spells and abilities, so that's a nice buff to look forward to, but they're also going to get a 20% buff to Spirit Bloom healing. Energizing Flame's mana refund has been increased up to 80% from 50%.
These are some decent
Disintegrate
buffs.
damage is being buffed by 25%, and Living Flame damage has been increased by 25% as well. So Preservation should be doing quite a bit more healing and a good chunk more damage. Hunters made it to the list this week as well. Beast Mastery has some changes to the Dark Ranger hero talent tree. Black Arrow duration was increased to 14 seconds, up from 10. Withering Fire now prioritizes enemies that do not already have the Black Arrow effect, and Withering Fire now fires 4 additional Black Arrows.
And Beast Mastery is doing great, so I'm surprised that they didn't get nerfed hard here. They just got some reworks. A pack leader fixed a bug preventing the lead. Okay, so there are some bugs. Dark Ranger, Withering Fire now prioritizes. Meh.
Up from 2, so nothing too
just
major,
some reworks,
but at least there aren't
nothing
any
huge.
nerfs coming your way. Survival has some changes too. They're going to get a 4% buff to all ability damage, so that should bring them up a notch.
Wow.
And then Pack Leader will see a bunch of buffs for Survival specifically. Dire Summon's kill command cooldown reduction was doubled up to 2 seconds. Bear and Boar damage have been increased by 40%.
That's a lot.
Howl of the Pack Leader duration was reduced to 20.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Survival the worst of the Hunter specs right now? I mean, this should help it a lot.
5 seconds, and then there's a bug fix thrown in for good measure as well. Marksmanship wasn't left out. They'll see a 15% buff to explosive shot damage, a 25% buff to volley damage, and then Dark Ranger has a bunch of buffs as well.
They're all doing well in raid. Yeah, I know they all are.
Black Arrow duration was increased to 14 seconds. Phantom Pain damage share was increased to 24%, up from 8%, so that's a pretty huge buff right there. And then Bleak
big.
Powder damage was increased by 100% as well. So buffs all around for the Hunters this week. Moving on to the
Hunters were like second most. I know what, I can't remember which spec it was, but Hunters were like second in total DPS and raid. So that's Jesus. Hunters getting buffed across the board. Blizzard been loving Hunters lately.
Mages, it's all very quick buffs or nerfs. Arcane will see an 8% increase across the board. Nothing surprising there. Arcane has...
Sam, specs are different for raid, Mythic Plus, PV. I know it's not one size fits all. I know, but I just look at the raid, what's it called, DPS a lot, because that's like single target a lot of times, just to see like maximum output, what they're capable of.
Been left behind quite significantly, which is a stark departure from the beginning of the expansion, so that 8% buff should help Arcane keep up a bit better. Frost Mages will see a 4% buff for all of their abilities and damage, so Frost joins Team Buffs this week. Not quite as high as the Arcane buff, but something is definitely better than nothing. And then Fire lands themselves in Team Nerfs this week, which also isn't very surprising. Fire Mages have been dominating quite comfortably, both in Raid and Mythic Plus, so they're going to see a 3% nerf this week. Honestly, I expected this to be a lot worse. Getting away with a 3% nerf really isn't too bad for Fire Mage right now. Moving on to the monks, Windwalkers also joined Team Nerfs with a 4% damage decrease across the board. Windwalker monks have also been doing very well so far.
Very well. Windwalker monks are #1 right now. I believe they're #1 overall in raid damage and like #2 in Mythic Plus damage, like AoE and everything. Like Windwalker monks, this is their era. This is the best they've been, since probably Legion. I think Windwalker monks I remember they had a decent time in Legion, and obviously Mists of Pandaria, they were really good too, so... It's been a while since Windwalker monks have been top tier DPS, and they are right now. They're doing great. And the crazy thing is, they're one of like the least played classes in the game. So if you're a Windwalker monk right now, you're probably getting insta invites to a lot of shit.
So them getting knocked down a peg or two is quite expected. Mistweavers are also going to join Team Nerfs this week, but it's a little more nuanced. They're going to see a 25% damage nerf to everything, so that's definitely not ideal, but their spells and abilities that transfer damage into healing have been buffed up to compensate. Spinning Crane Kick saw a 15% damage increase as well, so they are going to be doing less damage with these changes in play, but their healing shouldn't be affected quite as much. The Brewmasters haven't been left out though. They're going to see a 3% damage buff for all of ability damage, and their new set bonus was buffed up to a 250% damage increase, up from 150%. So nothing massive coming through for Brewmaster monks, but it's still going to be better than nerfs, I suppose. Paladins are up next, and Holy is starting off strong with a 3% healing buff for all of their heals. Word of Glory and Eternal Flame healing have also been increased by 20%.
The most played class in the game, Paladins, getting some buffs here. So an increase in healing, that's nice. Additional Light of Dawn, and so good, man. These are buffs across the board.
Buff as well. Holy Prism AoE healing and damage have been increased by 30%, and single target healing and damage.
See, when Paladins get buffed in any way, shape, or form, it's always great because people are going to play Paladin whether it's good or not, because people just love fucking Paladins. So it's better for the entire game when Paladins are doing good, because that means a lot of players are doing better.
Increased by 50%, and then Shield of the Righteous also saw a 30% damage buff, so buffs all around for the Holy Paladins this week. And then Retribution Paladins will see a quick buff to Final Verdict, that's going to see a 20% buff, so happy days for the Paladins. Now moving on, we come to the Priests, and Holy Priests have been struggling so far in Season 2. It's no surprise then that they have a whole suite of buffs this week. Prayer of Healing will see a 25% buff, Prayer of Mending Healing is up 20%, Renew Healing was increased by 60%, Lightwell Healing is up 30%, Divine Image Healing and Damage was increased by 20%, Holy Fire Damage is up 20%, Renewed Faith was buffed up to 10%, Renews from Empowered Renew now go for 120% more than normal Renew, up from 60%, so another big buff right there. And then Oracle saw quite a few buffs as well. Preemptive Care increases the duration of Renew by 40%, up from 25%. Preventative Measures increases the healing of Prayer of Mending by 40%, up from 25%, and it also increases
Oracle one of their hero talents? Is that what it is? The thing is, with the hero talent buffs and changes, I always wonder, like, is that actually one that people play? Because sometimes they'll be buffing one to make it more playable, but it doesn't affect anything because nobody runs that hero talent spec. So I'm wondering if Oracle is one of their hero talent specs, and if it is it one that they actually play? Because then these won't have any changes, really. You basically pay a paladin, right? I do not. Calling a Death Knight a paladin, disgusting. Just delete that comment from the chat.
Smite, Holy Fire, and Holy Nova by 40%, up from 25%. So a lot of buffs for healing and damage for Holy Priests next week. Now, Shadow isn't going to see the same love, I'm afraid. They're walking into next week with a 3% nerf for all of their damage, but it definitely could have been worse. Discipline isn't walking away unscathed either. Lenience now causes Atonement to reduce damage taken by 2%, down from 3%, and Atonement Heal Transfer was reduced down to 32% from 35%. So not crazy nerfs by any means, but Disc will still be doing a bit worse next week. Rogues made the list this week as well, but it's only for Assassination. Their old 2-piece set bonus was nerfed, and they'll see a 3% damage buff across the board, with an extra 40% buff for Mutilate and Ambush.
Okay, yeah, but Rogues need a buff. They're actually hurting a little bit this season. As good as Rogues were in the first season, not the first season, actually. Yeah, the first season. Right off the bat, Dragonflight, and then into the War Within, Rogues were doing really good. It's this season that they were hurting, but nice to see some buffs here for them.
40% buff for Mutilate and Ambush. And then we come to the Shamans. For Elemental, Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt, Ice Fury, and...
If you missed Season 1, Shamans, Enhancement Shaman, they champions of Season 1. Shaman's been doing amazing so far this expansion, so nice. Wow, we're getting buffs for them too.
The Frost Shock damage are all being buffed up by 8%. Primordial Wave will now generate 12 Maelstrom, up from 3.
500%? What the hell? Was Primordial Wave not doing anything before? A 500% buff. Oh my god. Was just nobody using Primordial Wave? Are they just trying to make this thing usable at this point? Because it couldn't have done some decent damage for it to get a 500% buff. It was meh. It's not going to be any more.
And Primordial Wave's damage is being buffed up by a whopping 500%.
I've never seen a straight up damage increase by that much to any single ability. What the hell?
It's going to hit quite a bit harder when these changes go into play. And then Restoration will see some bug fixes, and their 2-piece set bonus is being buffed up by 30%. Now, Warlocks come in swinging this week with a 3% buff to Demonology. That's it, that's all you've got. Better than nerfs, though, I guess. And then we round out this week's class changes with the Warriors. Protection will be seeing quite a few nerfs. Shield Slam damage has been reduced by 5%. Practice Strikes is being reduced down to a 10% bonus from 20%. One Against Many has been nerfed down to 3% per target, down from 5%. Tide of Battle was reduced to 7% per stack, down from 10%. And then Strength of the Mount...
I feel like Blizzard can't figure out Protection Warrior. Like, they were like so limp dicky. Nobody know, like they're slow runners, kind of like a Death Knight issue, but at least Death Knights can heal themselves a decent amount. Warriors can heal, but less so. And then they buffed them, and now they're nerfing them again. I feel like Warriors have been in limbo for a while. Prot Warriors specifically.
Mountain's bonus to shield slam damage has been increased to 15%.
Have you seen Warriors leap? Yeah, they got a nice leap.
That's it for this week's round of class buffs and nerfs, but with this being the first real adjustments for Season 2, I would expect to see some more changes squeak their way in over the next few weeks, and then we'll probably start seeing larger changes pop up on the 11.1 PTR as that patch gets closer. Now remember that all of these changes will go live with the next weekly reset on Tuesday, March 25th.
It's messing me up, man. I mean, the face coming up again and again, it's messing me up. I love it. I'm glad he did it because I love putting a face to the name. Man.
So we don't have to wait too long for these changes to go into effect. Now, it's not just class buffs and nerfs to go over this week. A lot of trinkets have been buffed quite considerably as well. I know
something about him reminds me of Ian Hazakostas too. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the blue eyes. Maybe it's the blue eyes.
I know going down this list, it's kind of hard to see how impactful some of these buffs might be, but for the most part, it looks like any trinket listed here will be getting a 20% buff. Now, some of these trinkets will still probably be quite bad. Their effects just aren't good enough to stack up against some others, but some of them were kind of close to the best in slot trinkets a lot of folks are chasing after. So these buffs could change up your best in slot list moving forward, or at the very least, if you are currently stuck with some of these less than ideal trinkets, well, at least you'll be getting a bit more out of them with these buffs in play.
Yeah, for sure.
All of these trinket buffs were hotfixed in, so they should be live already. It's probably going to take a hot minute for sims and guides to be updated, so if you get your hands on any of these trinkets, I would hold on to them to see if these buffs make them good enough to use over whatever you're currently running with. And then we got our first look at one of the new features coming in patch 11.1.5 called Dastardly Duos. This is a new PvE arena style event where you face off against old dungeon bosses, and there's quite a variety in here, so I'm sure you're going to remember most of them. Now, there are a couple of stages to these events. You'll have a preparation area.
Oh, well, this looks like some fun, you know, single-player content, another challenge mode added to the game, and I feel like ever since Mage Tower, challenge modes have been a fun little piece of side content to do.
Where you can make sure you have everything you need, the right talents and spec, all that good stuff. There are some food buffs that you can pick up that increase your damage or decrease your damage for a score multiplier. This will make more sense in just a moment. And there are potions you can pick up as well. One that gives you constant heals over time, one is a big movement speed buff, and then the other one makes you invisible. So you have some extra utility options from these potions as well. Whenever you're ready, you can enter the arena, and the event is going to start off with trash packs that you have to clear through, and then you face off against a couple of bosses. And as the weeks go by, I think the idea is that more bosses will be added in. But that's kind of it. Just kill everything laid out in front of you. At the end of the event, you'll get a score, which is dependent on how much damage you do, how quickly you kill everything, and how many times you...
This is the thing I don't understand. Your score is based on how much damage you do, but if you're playing like a tanking spec or something, like you're just going to have a lower score. I don't get that. But I guess maybe it's offset by the fact that you're going to be healing a little bit, so you're going to be doing damage and healing. I don't know. Or if you play a healing spec, you're going to do a lot of healing but less damage.
Die. You can increase the score by using...
In this case, there's just going to be some optimal... There's going to be some best-in-slot specs to run for this, for sure.
You can increase the score by using special items to extend the timer or summon extra bosses.
Maybe the way to compare it will be like I have the best blood DK score in the game. Like maybe they'll chart it out that way. I'd like to see some charts on this at the end and see who like actually put out the best scores. And maybe it would be really cool if they gave you titles or rewards based on who had the best one. Like I said, like Gladiator, like finishing in the top 1% in your spec. That would be really cool to get a reward for that.
Or by killing stuff inside the big blue circles in the arena. A big part of this event seems to be to get as high a score as you possibly can, so taking advantage of all of those bonuses is going to be really important if you want to be able to show off a super crazy high score. You can queue into this content by yourself or with up to a group of 5 players by the looks of things, so it's basically going to be like Delves. The difference is that when you land in the lobby area, your party is going to be filled with AI or NPC followers. So It's actually more like follower dungeons, and this does include a tank and a healer. This makes this new event very solo player friendly. So you can go in all by yourself and you'll have a full party of NPCs to do the event with. You can take some friends in and the NPCs will fill around your current party, so that's going to be a nice touch. Now you can tell these NPCs to leave if you'd rather do the event by yourself or just with your party of friends, so you'll have the option to lean on those NPCs if you want to, or get rid of them if you don't. Now as for rewards, it looks like you'll be able to pick up veteran gear from the end of each run, so this could be a good way to quickly gear up any of your alts that have been left behind. There are some quests that reward you with a box of goodies, which also contains some champion gear, and from what we know of the event so far, these are probably going to be weekly quests. So you should be able to pick up 1 piece of champion gear per week the event is active.
It's not bad, but by the time this event goes live, most people are going to be past champion gear, so... It's going to be an alt gearing thing or, you know, an achievement or mount or whatever, you know, transmog getting thing. Like, that's why people are going to do it.
As long as you're keeping up with the quests.
I don't think the gear is going to be an incentive.
That's not super great, so I wouldn't really expect to see many gear upgrades from this event for any of your main characters. There are plenty of achievements and cosmetic rewards, though, and there is a podium where you can show off your high scores, so that's going to be cool at least. Now, this is just our first look at the event, so we'll have more information about how it all works and best practices when patch 11.15 is a bit closer to launch. But that's all the news we have for this week, so that's it for this week's WoW News video. What do you think of the first round of class buffs and nerfs for Season 2? Are there any classes that you think still need some big buffs or nerfs? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see their names floating by on screen.
You know what's fucking me up is like, he just showed his face without acknowledging it. Well, like it's always been this way. Like, if somebody watched this video and it's their first Colani video ever, they would think, like, this is normal. Like, this guy always shows his face. What a cool way to do it. He's just sly. Like, hey, here's my face. No reaction.
If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.
Colani with the face reveal and the nice video about DPS changes and everything like that. So big player buffs and nerfs coming out this reset. So go out, test your characters, and save your trinkets for sure. A lot of those trinket changes are a big deal. Nice video from Colani.